Hello and welcome to Crosstalk. I'm Peter Lavelle. Turkey and its road ahead. A little over a year ago, Turkey was being hailed as the new leader and model for the Muslim world. Among many Turks, the Ottoman legacy is again back in vogue. My, how things have changed. Instead of focusing on a foreign policy of no problems with its neighbors, particularly Syria, is Ankara's foreign policy today in disarray. To crosstalk the new Ottomans, I'm joined by Gareth Jenkins in Istanbul. He is a non-resident senior fellow with the Institute for Security and Development Policy Silk Road Studies program. Also in Istanbul, we have Aykan Erdemir. He is a Republican People's Party member of Parliament. And in Washington, we cross to Ilhan Tanir, the correspondent for Vatan Daily and a fellow with the Henry Jackson Society. All right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want. Gareth, if I can go to you first, what is neo-Ottomanism? And is it a good idea?
Well, basically, I think it's the idea that there should be a Turkish sphere of influence in the Middle East in particular, in those territories which were once ruled by the Ottoman Empire. And it's a very simple answer to your question. No, I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think the people in the region want it. Okay, can you give me 2 reasons why it's a bad idea? Well, one is that I don't think anybody in the region wants to go back to the age of imperialism where you have one particular country lording it over the others. And the other is that there are many sectarian divisions within the region now, both between Sunni and Shia, and also divisions on ethnic grounds. So if you put all of these people in to one particular bloc, you're both going to get basically an undemocratic system, but you're also going to get divisions and tensions within that bloc. So I don't think, even if Turkey was able to establish it, it would be a very healthy model in which to go into the future. Okay, in Washington, D.C., what do you think about that? Because the term exists, people are talking about it, a lot is written about it.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. First of all, Turkish administration, I mean, Foreign Minister Davutoğlu has been denying that there's a neo-Ottomanism. Just for the record, I think we need to tell it. But let's look at the last 10 years. I mean, Turkey, before the Arab Spring started, was again being accused as neo-Ottoman just because, you know, it was getting along well with Iran and Russia, and against Syria. I mean, it was receiving a lot of flags from, especially from Washington, just because, you know, it was using its soft power. And now, after the Arab Spring, you know, famous zero problems with neighbors policy now, you know, gone. And again, now Turkey is being accused as Ottoman because it's not getting along with, you know, Iran and Syria especially. So the bottom line is Turkey is not the same Turkey before 2000. Now it has, you know, different ambitions and aims, and whatever it does now with its, you know, better economy, it's being accused as Ottomans at any rate, whatever it does.
Okay, and what do you think about that? Because, you know, a year and a half ago, Turkey didn't have very many problems with its neighbors. Now it has problems with almost everybody now.
I think we need to distinguish between 2 different foreign policy styles. One is what has already been going on, that Turkey is becoming more dynamic and proactive in foreign policy, and as an opposition member of the parliament, I do support the new dynamism and proactive style in Turkish foreign policy. This, however, is quite different from what's also going on the other hand, and we can simply gloss it as a neo-Ottoman style of foreign policy. And this is a foreign policy that relies heavily on Turkey's Sunni Muslim partners in the greater region. Moreover, within Turkey, in domestic politics, there is the self-perception that Turkey is moving towards a neo-Ottoman policy, and you can hear this from many bureaucrats and also opinion leaders in Turkey as well, close to the government. And what the second style of policy has brought us to is all these emerging problems, not only in the immediate neighborhood of Turkey, but also in the regions beyond. Because my colleagues in the Balkans, my colleagues in the Caucasus, my colleagues in North Africa have repeatedly told me in our encounters that no one wants a big brother in the region, and no one wants Turkey to be involved in a neo-imperial, in a condescending style in these regions.
Okay. Gareth, you know, a more activist foreign policy is risky, isn't it? I mean, we've seen that over the last year and a half.
But also,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think you have to be very careful about what kind of activist policy this is. I would actually take issue with Ilhan on this idea that Davutoglu isn't a neo-Ottomanist. He says he's not a neo-Ottomanist, but when you look at what he talks about how everything was going very well up until the First World War. He talks about 400 years of peace and harmony in the Middle East. He talks about history reasserting its natural course. All of these are references to the Ottoman past. They may be slightly coded references, but they are there nevertheless. And the problem is that when you then pursue an activist foreign policy based upon supremacism, you're going to run into problems. I don't think there's any question, if you look at the people in the region, they're mostly Muslims, they'd much prefer to have good relations with Turkey and to be close to Turkey than they would be to be with countries outside the region, such as my own Britain, which has its own, imperial past in the region. If they had to choose between Britain and Turkey, they'd much prefer to have good relations with Turkey. But the problem with Turkey, it's been trying to assert itself and tell other people what to do. If you talk to the people in the region, they want to be partners with Turkey. They don't want to be subjects. They don't want to be subordinates. And Turkey's activist foreign policy has been based on going around telling people what to do. We even have Erdogan last year went to Egypt and told a very conservative society they should be secular like Turkey was. This isn't a question of partnership. This is dictating to other people how they should behave and setting yourself up as a model for others to follow, which I think is extraordinarily arrogant and also very insulting to the people to whom you're saying it.
Okay, Ilhan, if I go back to you in Washington, but there's a competition for influence here. If we can look at Syria here and other proxies in the neighborhood getting involved in that. I mean, Turkey just wants to be part of the game, be part of the decision-making game. It's very, very dangerous when you're dealing with a civil war like this. But I mean, the Turks are not alone in wanting to exert influence in the region. It's a competition.
Definitely. Well, just, I mean, let me take one issue with Mr. Aykan. Well, about the Sunni part of the, foreign policy that, Turkey being accused as pursuing Sunni. Well, Turkey also wanted Gaddafi and Mubarak to leave the power. Leaders, these leaders were Sunnis. So, I mean, we mostly right now, the big problem in the region is Syria, obviously. Many of the Turkish problems, foreign policy problems, stem from a Syria problem. And yes, there is a competition. Let's talk about Syria. It's next door to Turkey. Whatever happens in Syria, impacts Turkey in so many levels. So, I mean, I think Turkey had no other choice but in certain degree involved with Syria, and that's what it did. I mean, you can criticize Turkey.
Well, if I go to Ilhan, let's look at Syria, because before this, before Turkey's stance, it could have been a mediator. It could have played a very different role. But it decided to go against Assad. So, Ilhan, what do you think about that? Because, the dynamic changed there. I mean, the Syrians are not going to look at the Turks as being a mediator.
I still insist that Turkey's involvement in the Middle East and North Africa is one that works through Sunni conservative partners. The case of Egypt and the case of Libya, I think, prove my case, since what we see on the rise in these two countries is Muslim Brotherhood's influence in politics. And we also see a similar trend in Iraq, where Turkey is again at odds with the Shia government. In Syria, Turkey unfortunately has acted in very sectarian ways and has not been a positive support for democratization and institution building. Because I believe we have two alternatives here vis-à-vis Syria. As the main opposition party, we agree with the government that it's a human tragedy and the civilian killings should cease at once, and we want democratization in Syria. But where we differ from the Turkish government is that we want an all-encompassing, participatory and transparent process in Syria, which includes all stakeholders as legitimate partners in governing a democratic Syria. AKP government, on the contrary, when it comes to their stance in Syria, is not only sectarian, but always focuses its influence on narrower segments of society and is leading Syria to a majoritarian regime where fundamental rights and freedoms will not be secure.
Okay, we're going to go to the break real quick here. Gareth, don't you think the Turks should push democracy more than anything else? Because they actually have done a pretty good job.
The Turks have done a good job in pushing democracy.
Yes, I mean, if this is a model that can be exported, okay, a sense of a participatory democracy, okay, instead of the sectarian element.
But for Turkey at the moment, it's becoming increasingly more undemocratic and more authoritarian. I mean, if Turkey was moving towards being a more liberal, participatory, pluralistic society, then I would agree. But when we look at Turkey itself, we're seeing its increased authoritarianism, less democracy. And we're also seeing a double standard in terms of who Turkey is supporting.
We'll go back to you for a double standard when we come back from the break. After our short break, we'll continue our discussion on Turkey. Stay with RT. Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm Peter Lavelle. To remind you, we're talking about Turkey's foreign policy ambitions. Okay, Gareth, I'd like to go back to you. At the end of the first segment, you used the term double standard. And on this program, when anyone says double standard, I go right back to them. So go ahead.
Okay. What I was trying to say was when you look at Turkey's reaction, for example, to the uprisings in Bahrain in February 2011, where you had the uprising by a Shia majority against a very undemocratic Sunni ruling elite. And at that time, actually, Turkey sided with the Sunni elite. And that's a double standard. You're now going to try to say that by supporting the opposition to Assad, you're supporting democracy. Also, you go back a couple of years for Turkey's support for the regime in Sudan, the Sunni regime in Sudan, which was perpetuating a genocide in Darfur. So I think we see, of course, Turkey is not alone in this. Other countries have been guilty of double standards. But it does raise very serious questions about the Turkish government's motivations if it tries to pretend it's actually supporting democracy and not just people with whom it happens to agree for sectarian reasons.
Okay. Ilhan, if I go back to you in Washington, what is the role of Islam if Turkey indeed is pursuing a new Ottoman agenda here, which the government, as you point out, denies? But I mean, the region is so there's so much strife when it comes to sectarian differences. Can Islam be that element to unify people? Apparently not.
I mean, before this question, which is a great question, I'm going to have to agree with Jared actually in terms of, Turkish democracy and where it is heading. Unfortunately, in terms of standards of the democracy, freedom of press, and many other aspects that Turkey, the road Turkey is on, unfortunately, it doesn't seem a good, having a good role. And Turkey, someone just told a few days ago, Turkey can be a great economic model maybe for the Middle East, but for the time being, unfortunately, Turkey is becoming more authoritarian. And in terms of double standards, well, again, I mean, Syria is a very different case. Syria is a neighbor. It's not Bahrain, it's not Sudan, it is neighbor. And, you know, as someone who's been to Syria 3 times within this year, and actually someone who got arrested by the Syrian regime, I was able to see the Damascus suburbs in January, how people got so tired of this regime. And, you know, I am taking an issue with Mr. Aykan, that you know, those are great ideas, transparency, you know, transition to democracy. But where is the, you know, authority in Damascus that, you know, can accept those ideas? You know, Arab League tried with the peace mission, Kofi Annan tried, now Brahimi tries. So, I mean, from the beginning, Damascus was not interested in that kind of dialogue. And, you know, whenever you talk to Syrian people on the ground, you know, I was again in Aleppo and Idlib in late August, people just, you know, don't trust this regime to go on another path.
Okay,
to,
but I mean,
you know,
let's go to
dialogue.
I'd like to go to Aykan in Istanbul. I mean, what is a positive role that Turkey can play now in resolving the situation in Syria? Because it's already taken a side.
I think Turkey is already on the other side of the mirror vis-à-vis Syria. That is, I see little chance of Turkey playing a positive role in Syria, because we have already entrenched ourselves within Syria through our support for the insurgents, our logistical support, our arms support, our financial support, and which means that Turkey no longer has the legitimacy to speak to other stakeholders in Syria. And I do agree that Assad's regime cannot continue as it does, and I do agree that it was already a tyrannical, authoritarian regime when Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan befriended him and became best buddies for a while. But I still believe that transition to democracy rarely happens through lots of bloodshed and civilian fighting and killing, and often what we need is a gradual transition, often bringing in carrots and sticks from the international community. I know Assad is difficult to move in the right direction, but my take on democratization is that a gradual and incremental move towards furthering fundamental rights and freedoms, particularly with incentives and disincentives from the international society, is always a better idea.
Okay, Gareth, do you think that the Turks have burned their fingers already in Syria? There's no way out?
I think we've got to that point now, unfortunately. I think there was an opportunity in the past when Turkey could have played a more constructive role. And we even saw Assad a few days ago saying that his regime was prepared to talk to Turkey. But that was rejected out of hand by Turkey. So Turkey could also play a role in trying to encourage the opposition to have a more democratic, pluralistic agenda and be ready to condemn atrocities which are or killings of civilians which are carried out by elements within the opposition. I think that would send a very strong signal if it didn't just condemn atrocities committed by one side, but condemn them when they were committed by both sides. But when you have a situation whereby Turkish artillery is now opening up on Assad's forces as soon as a shell crosses the border, regardless of where it's coming from, that doesn't look like a country which is in a position to be an interlocutor.
Okay, Ilhan, if I go back to you in Washington, do you think the Turks are doing this because they're a member of NATO, that no matter how bad it gets, they can always look to their NATO friends to bail them out? Even though the NATO forces don't look like they're interested in Syria, at least overtly right now. But it's kind of an interesting situation to be in, because you can be irresponsible. And I think, personally, Turkey has been irresponsible.
Definitely should be, you know, one of the reasons Turkey is more confident. I mean, you know, Turkey has been with NATO more than half a century. And, you know, it has been staunch ally in the, you know, Cold War and later on. But when it comes to, you know, benefit from NATO, I don't know how many times Turkey benefits from NATO. And the current situation, anyone who follows NATO and members of the NATO and U.S. and the Obama administration's policies, I mean, you can see, NATO chief Rasmussen, every other day he, comes out and says NATO, has no interest in whatsoever to intervene in Syria every other day. I mean, I don't think
but nonetheless,
that,
they are in a
NATO
treaty
gives a lot of
organization.
confidence.
It's a treaty organization. Gareth, what about this? I mean, if Turkey wants to have greater influence in the region, can it stay a member of NATO? Because if it stays a member of NATO, it looks like it's a conduit of Washington.
Absolutely. I think this is a major dilemma for Turkey. When Davutoglu, he wrote a book in 1991 called Civilizational Transformation and the Muslim World, which formed the basis of a much more famous book he wrote later, 10 years later, called Strategic Depth. And then in his first book, he was very explicit that Turkey needs to be a member of an alternative security architecture, is the way he put it, to NATO. And I think that there is a very real danger now for Turkey that if it continues to have all these problems with different countries, and even with Egypt, relations aren't that good at the moment, it's going to look like a proxy for the West if it remains in NATO. And yet, if it leaves, it's also going to be very isolated. I think you can discuss how it's strategically, politically, how much Turkey has gained from NATO membership, but in terms of technically, most of its equipment comes from other NATO countries. It's training. All of this is done in cooperation with NATO. So from a technical perspective, it has gained a lot. And if it forms some kind of alliance with other countries in the region, no other country in the region has the technology that could match what Turkey can get from other NATO members.
Hakan, do you want to jump in on that? Turkey and its future in NATO?
NATO to Turkey, I think, represents more than simply a security hedge. And NATO is, in fact, an anchor, together with the Council of Europe and together with Turkey's EU membership, anchoring Turkey in Western values. But what I really mean by Western values is basically human rights, fundamental rights and freedoms, gender equality, secularism, and so on and so forth. Because increasingly, Turkish citizens see the threats posed to pluralistic democracy in Turkey by the rising charismatic authority of Erdogan, and a charismatic authority that neither respects opposition.
Let me jump in here. Gareth, I'm going to give you the last word.
Within his own party.
Is Turkey going to the east or the west, or is it just staying right where it is? 40 seconds.
I think Turkey is leaning towards the east, but it may find that its feet are still in the west. All
righty, gentlemen. Thank you very much for a riveting discussion. Many thanks today to my guests in Istanbul and in Washington, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules.